Hey, Pastor Josh here. Just want to give you an update on Redeeming Grace Church. It is April 20th of 2020, and I just want to touch base on a few things here that I wrote down. One is that last week we sent out a outreach form via Facebook and just encourage just the community, whoever would happen to see it, to let us know how COVID-19 is affecting them, and then asked kind of if people were interested in being followed up with to leave their information. And so it went out to, I think, several thousand people. It got shared and liked a lot. It got filled out a few times. No one really left a lot of personal information that we could follow up with, and nobody shared needs that we could really help with. So it didn't accomplish all that we'd hoped, but I think that people appreciated it. It seemed like it got shared and liked a lot, and the interactions we did have, I think people appreciated. So I do think that it was a positive impression of our church. Let them know that we exist, that we care, and while we don't have a lot of ministry contacts to follow up with, I do think that it was worthwhile just to let the community know, particularly the neighborhood around the journey, know that that there is a church and that we do care. And so hopefully the Lord uses that at some point to draw some people our way, and hopefully ultimately to Jesus. Also, I announced last week that we now have a Redeeming Grace Church podcast, and there's one episode up. There's still only one episode up because I'm still having some issues in terms of how to upload our sermons and different stuff like that. So we'll get that hammered out this week, hopefully, and then I'm hoping to come up with a system of putting content up regularly there. So that's still coming. Watch for that. Also, I would just like to let you know about a couple other things. One is that just as we've been doing a lot of like online streaming and Zoom calls and those kinds of things, I would just encourage you to, whether you attend Redeeming Grace or another church, make sure that you're praying for your pastors. I just was thinking through like preaching to a camera, and it just really can be kind of challenging. And I was trying to think through why that is, and I think there's a number of reasons. But one is I think it's hard to know and feel the prayers and the enthusiasm and the affection for Christ when people aren't in the room. So when people have their Bibles open and they're taking notes, it just encourages you as a pastor, the amens you hear. And when you're preaching just kind of into silence, you don't always really know if how the message is landing with people. You're not able to kind of make adjustments as you're preaching, as you see the reactions of folks and that kind of stuff. So I would just encourage you to just continue to pray for your pastor and let him know you're praying for him, because that really fuels him in his preaching, and he'll preach better if he knows that you're preparing and praying for him. So just an encouragement to you. The goal is not to have a pity party for pastors or anything, but just it is challenging and difficult, and you don't. The preaching of God's word is meant to be a community event and a two-way thing. While only one person is speaking, the congregation is responding, and that helps the preacher preach well. So try to do what you can to let your pastor know that you're listening, that you're being helped, asking questions, that kind of stuff. Really, really helps a pastor do well, and he'll preach better, and the live streams will be better. So that would be one encouragement I'd give you. Another is that if you heard our message yesterday from John chapter 8 about Jesus saying, if you're truly my disciples, you will abide in my word, know the truth, and be set free from sin. I didn't mention this in the message, but I just noticed that the letter of 1 John, I think, is an exposition of that particular statement by Jesus. So I actually think that the Apostle John himself has written a sermon for a church based on the text that we looked at yesterday. So if you were helped by the sermon at all yesterday, or were intrigued by some of the themes, just know that there's a Bible writer that actually wrote an even better sermon that's inspired by the Spirit and preserved in God's Word, called 1 John. So that would be, I guess, a homework or a follow-up assignment for you, is that if you were with us Sunday and heard the message on John 8 on true discipleship, take a few moments to read through the book of 1 John. It's not very long. And John himself, the same writer of that gospel, I think expounds what Jesus says right there in John chapter 8, verses 32 through 36. So, and then one last thing to encourage you is that I'm just being reminded in this time the power of just a phone call and a text. So I would encourage you that carve out some time once a week to make 3 or 4 or 5 phone calls to fellow church members, maybe even people you don't know or people who've only newly be coming to the church. So talk to your pastor or to somebody else and get that contact information. I've just been blown away by how much people are appreciating just a phone call. And I need to do more of it, but the times that I've done it, it seems like it's really meaningful both ways. I'm super encouraged, and I think they feel loved and cared for. So you don't have to be a pastor or be in any official position in your church to just send a text or make a phone call, and it means a lot. So make the discipline, even if you hate making phone calls, make the discipline to just make 1 or 2 once a week. And I think you'll be amazed how encouraging it is, both for you and for someone else. And that's part of the body building itself up in love. So just encourage you with that. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in on this video. Make sure you check out some of the links in the email, the weekly email. Leave us a prayer request. Let us know how we can pray and help you. And I just trust that you will have a great week this week. Thanks.